The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost Here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello and welcome to the Future Tech Podcast, everyone. My name is Josh Thomas, and I'm here with Anatoly Kvitnitsky from Trulioo.com. Hey, Toly, how's it going?
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be on.
Excellent. And so we've been looking into your company, Trulioo.com, and from what we understand, you assist companies in locating and verifying data on people. You don't store it, but you have this ability to access it. Give us a quick overview of how Trulioo works and who it's for.
Yeah, happy to. So Trulioo, we're a global identity verification company. Today we're able to verify roughly 4.5 billion people across about 60 different countries. And the way we do that is through a marketplace of data. So in the same way, like you take an Uber, but yet Uber doesn't own any of the cars, or you rent a place from Airbnb, but Airbnb doesn't actually own the apartment that you're staying in. Trulioo, we use consumer data to verify someone, though we don't actually own the data. We just provide access through it. We have over 350 different data partners on our network that we use to verify those 4.5 billion people, and that's how we do it around the world.
And so I'm curious, the way that a lot of us would be able to relate is we're aware that, Facebook, for instance, has a couple of data partners. They call them, big data, basically. And they can find out just about anything you want to know about a potential customer for advertising purposes, down to the flavor of orange juice that they like. Is that kind of what you do, but for other companies?
So, in a way, yes and no. We frankly don't really care what orange juice you like, nor the previous 3 websites that you visited. Even though it's super interesting, I'd love to see the data on my stuff. Actually, it was just I don't know if you're aware, in Europe, every consumer now has the right to pull the data that a company has on them. It was a young lady. She was a Tinder user, and she said, "Hey, let me ask Tinder what they have on me," and they gave her a report of 400 pages from 9 months of use. Wow. So it's a little scary. I'm sure Tinder knows a little bit more than the kind of orange juice that you like. But we're a little different. Yeah. We focus on the personal information typically used for financial products. So imagine yourself signing up for a PayPal account or a bank account, and the things that you're typically entering to get an account there. So fields like address, date of birth, possibly a social security number or the equivalent in a different country, inputs like that, just so we can verify to make sure that the business that is signing up this customer knows who they're dealing with, so that they know it's Anatoly, they know it's Richard, and they're comfortable doing business with us, and that the information matches from other points of truth, like credit bureaus, carrier information, and things like that. So that's the data that we typically focus on, just the data needed to sign up for products like that.
Okay, very good. And so who would be a typical type of client to use the service?
Sure. So it's banks, financial institutions, marketplaces, all fit the bill. Essentially, we meet what's called AML and KYC compliance, so anti-money laundering and know your customer compliance. which basically means that you have to make sure that the person you're doing business with, especially if you're providing them a means to move money from one person to another, first is who they say they are, and two, is not a bad guy. So in addition to checking information about who you are, we're also checking about 70 different watch lists and known criminal lists. And that ranges from a variety of different use cases, anywhere from, banks, which is the most obvious, to new emerging ones like marketplaces and even ICOs in the crypto world. And all of those use cases all have an AML KYC compliance component to it.
And so tell me a little bit more about the ICOs. We have a huge audience of crypto enthusiasts. So tell me what would be a typical use case for an ICO? Is it just compliance, or are there other uses?
Yeah, great question. So if from our perspective, it is compliance. I would actually point to everyone that's interested in the space should take a look at the guidelines that GDAX, which is Coinbase's exchange, posted for what they consider before they add a token to their exchange. And compliance is, they have a whole section for compliance. So basically from the entrepreneurs launching the coin, you have to do things like to make sure that is the coin a security or utility. If it's security, it's not a bad thing. They just have to do the proper legal to make sure everything is kosher with that coin before doing an ICO. Or is it an actual utility? Meaning, like Ethereum is a great example. Is the coin paid to do something and not like pay dividends, as an example? And there's a legal test called the Howey test. To determine that. So those things we're not involved with, but then the compliance piece, as far as when you're getting money, whether it's Ether, which is the most common, obviously, or Bitcoin or Ripple or whatever, or even fiat currency, then the AML KYC compliance piece comes in. And right in the GDAX standards, which is what I've seen is the most diligent standards, so the most diligent checklist, that AML and KYC standards cannot be compromised. Meaning that at some point, I know everyone likes to think crypto has to be anonymous, but at some point to make it a legal currency, you have to know who the person is who's moving these funds, whether it's fiat or whether it's crypto. And that does involve at some point verifying the person to make sure it's not bad guys moving money, from each other and the like. So that's where we come in. We've helped many ICOs verify the investors that they're dealing with. And in the U.S., there's also you have to make sure it's an accredited investor, which we do not help with. But that's to make sure, in the case that your ICO drops, that the people who were accredited investors can actually ask for their money back, which isn't a great outcome for the entrepreneurs doing the ICO. But where we come in is the AML KYC piece before these entrepreneurs can get whether fiat or other cryptocurrency in exchange for their tokens.
And so tell me a little bit more about how you got into this space. What was the inspiration, and did you just see a major gap and wanted to fill that need, or was it some other reason?
Yeah, great question. So our founders, Stephen Ufford and Tanis George, have been in the data and personal identity space for almost 20 years now. So they started one of the first credit bureaus in Canada, including a direct-to-consumer, like a Credit Karma of Canada as well, and a identity restoration company as well, which they all sold. But what they've seen in the market, and what they've seen was the gap in the market, was how hard it was to verify and how hard it was to even get any form of information on people outside of the G5 market. So it's pretty easy to get information on someone, including what orange juice they like in U.S., Canada, UK, but in other places like India, China, Indonesia, it gets really tricky. It gets really hard. And in our mind, what we view is one of the biggest reasons why so much of the world and the population is underserved with financial products like banking and things like that, and even e-commerce and things that we take for granted here in the U.S. Is because the businesses like the PayPals, like Citibank, can't verify the person that wants to open an account, and all of that starts with the verification piece. So that's where Trulioo was started with our mission to help the underbanked by being able to verify the entire world's population of 7 billion people.
Oh, that's a hefty task, to be sure. So how long have you been in this?
So the company is a little over 5 years old now. We're Vancouver, Canada based. I'm proud of it. I'm calling from our San Francisco office, where we have a smaller team, and I've been with the company a little over 3 years, and so far, even since I've been here, we've seen the amount of people and the amount of countries that we can cover double in a really short amount of time, when we continue to push forward with that hefty mission statement, as you put it.
With all of the ICOs, and let's talk about that for a minute. There are many, many issues. The SEC is trying to weigh in. The FTC is trying to weigh in. All of these government entities here in the U.S. Are seeing what's happening, and there are issues with it being, well, is it a token or is it a coin? Is it a security or does it have utility? Are you compliant? Are you non-compliant? Where do you see, let's say we fast forward, 1 to 2 years into the future, what role do you see compliance playing in the crypto world? Because I think it's, for a long time, it's just been an afterthought, and it's coming more into the light.
Yeah, sure. So, I'll caveat everything by saying just my opinion, and nowhere am I a lawyer, and I don't play one on podcasts either. But I actually think compliance will legitimize the space a lot. We still see a lot of naysayers. I just saw an article that Bitcoin futures is going to be entering like the NASDAQ exchange. So for more coins and for more cryptocurrencies to enter, call it more mainstream, and outside of, what Coinbase is probably the most mainstream, but outside of the three that they currently have, I think compliance has to play a role. So, 1,000 plus coins in existence is probably not necessary. And, what I read a lot about them, and you constantly see them failing, all like the Howey tests and things like that, by promising returns and promising dividends and things like that, which does make them a security, which does put them under the watchful eye of the SEC and such. So I think that more companies should probably lawyer up and better understand what they're saying and what it means, because you can't say, we're going to promise you returns, we're going to promise you dividend, and this is totally a token. That's actually the opposite, of what a utility token is. If you're promising financial returns and dividends and things like that. So I think compliance does need to play a role in it, and then the AML KYC piece also does need to play a huge role in it to avoid another, for example, like Silk Road from happening. AML KYC verifications to making sure the bad guys aren't using the cryptocurrency for legal activity does play a big role in it, and it does sound like a little bit of a headache, but the more, call it legitimate, the more. I just did an ICO, the ICO, and they did a full check on which country you're from, on identity verification, and such. So you see the more, call it sophisticated, or the more maybe serious ones that'll be around for the long term, already taking these measures, and hopefully that the compliance will kind of weed out some of these guys that are just trying to make a quick buck off of it. So long story short, I think ultimately it will be actually a positive for the market in general.
I agree. At some point, the cryptocurrency industry has to exit the wild, wild west phase that it's in now. And I think that's going to come with regulation. And as you said, that will legitimize the industry significantly. And, hopefully prices will, stabilize and the coins that are supposed to be for utility are used for utility, and all of the ones that are shoddily made will just disappear. Mm-hmm. Do you have any quick thoughts on that? What is a general time frame where you would expect compliance to really come in and reshape this industry?
Well, it's to force everyone, it will take exchanges to take like exactly what Coinbase is doing, to actually look at each one of these coins and make sure that they have met all of the different standards. Like that's why I think the GDAX, it's about a 5-page document that has different checkboxes to make sure you're meeting your security compliance, you're meeting your AML KYC compliance. But most exchanges that I'm sure you're a part of and I'm a member of myself, definitely do not do that. They're in it for the volume game, so they're just going to keep adding all of these, every new coin that's popping up. So until exchanges take a look at, which coins they're actually adding and is there value there? Is this a token or is this a security? What was their ICO process like? Did they actually follow, SEC guidelines if it is a security? Did they meet AML KYC compliance? Or is this, blind money entering the exchange, which actually in some ways makes the exchange now liable to AML KYC compliance fines? Until exchanges go through those measures, like GDAX publicly said they would, that's until then, or until government gets involved. I think that's what it'll take. Because ultimately, the ICOs, the new tokens, want to be traded, want to be more liquidity on them, and the exchanges actually probably first have to take a closer look at it, and then government will probably come in not as fast as some of these exchanges will take the measures, but will eventually. So again, just my thoughts of how I think it'll play out.
Very good. And so who in our audience would be an ideal client or somebody that would visit your site and interact with it?
Sure. So we are an entirely business-to-business company. We don't sell a product for just consumers, but we do sell for whether it's some of the largest banks and payment processors in the world, all the way down to garage startups. So if someone is starting a company, whether it's a cryptocurrency company, whether it's a marketplace, any company that's allowing the exchange of funds, whether again fiat or crypto, from one person to another, then you should really at least take a look about what AML KYC compliance means, and then if we can be helpful, then give us a visit at Trulioo.com, and we'd be happy to help. And then my email address is Toly@Trulioo.com, Toly@Trulioo.com, and anyone's more than welcome to ping me as well to chat about it.
Very good. Anatoly Kvitnitsky from Trulioo.com. I'm going to spell a couple of things for you here. It's Trulioo, TRULIOO.com. And if you want to reach out to Toly directly, it's Toly, Toly, at Trulioo.com, and that has 2 O's.
Yep.
Toly, thanks very much for being on here and joining us for the Future Tech Podcast. Any final thoughts for our audience?
I love what you guys are doing. I've listened to some of your other podcasts. I hope you continue to educate the world about what's happening in biometrics and the cryptocurrency space. And hopefully, the hard work that you're doing will pay dividends by more people just being more aware of it and getting more involved with it in the future. So I'm really excited to be on here, and thank you for having us.
Very good. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.